All right, so are you ready to jump into a corner of the crypto world that might be a little unsettling? You guys asked us to take a look at Elliot Veman, or as he's known online, Elliot Trades. And we found this really passionate video from someone who's been like really following all of Veman's activities for years. And they're making some serious allegations.
I think what's so interesting here is that this isn't just about like one person or even one cryptocurrency. This deep dive is really about influencer culture and the idea of like getting rich quickly
Hmm.
and the potential for manipulation that you see when things aren't really regulated like in crypto.
Exactly. And our source really emphasizes looking past the hype and the promises, especially with crypto. They point to some early concerns with Veeman's past, specifically something called Tron Chat and a venture called Evo Token. These allegedly raised funds, but they never actually delivered a product.
That's a big red flag for any investor, right? Raising money without like a real product or service can be a sign of what's called a pump and dump scheme. Basically, the creators generate hype and drive out the price, and then they disappear and leave investors holding the bag.
And the source argues that this pattern repeats itself throughout Veeman's different ventures. The next one they focus on is Superfarm, which you might have heard of because it involved YouTuber MrBeast. Our source claims that Veeman defrauded something like 70 whitelist winners. Now, for those who aren't familiar with crypto, a whitelist is a VIP list. It gives you early access to buy into a project, usually at a discounted price.
Yeah, it's usually seen as a reward for people who support the project early or people who promote it actively. But the problem here, according to the source, is that Veeman was using funds from these whitelist sales to pay back investors from his older ventures. They even say that Mr. Beast and other insiders got these payouts.
Oh, wow. And it doesn't stop there. The source says that these payouts happened at the same time as a surge in Superfarm's token price, which could be market manipulation. They suggest that by putting money back into the market very strategically, Veeman could make the price look higher than it actually was. It makes the project look more successful.
So that brings up a big question about transparency and due diligence in crypto. How can investors even know if a project is successful because it's actually good or if it's just manufactured? You have to really research the people behind a project and their track record and the technology too.
Right, and we do have to say that these are just allegations from one source. But they definitely raise some eyebrows. And CoffeeZilla, the YouTuber who, exposes scams, actually investigated this. But our source says that CoffeeZilla's investigation was incomplete. They criticized CoffeeZilla for believing V-Man when he said that he was depressed after the Superfarm launch, especially when you contrast that with how V-Man was living this extravagant lifestyle.
It's interesting because that's a tactic used by a lot of people involved in shady ventures. Playing the victim or claiming mental health struggles or financial hardship is a way to deflect criticism and get sympathy.
Yeah, and the source claims that Veeman has used this tactic again and again. For example, after all this super farm drama, Veeman launched a game that uses NFTs called Imposters. Millions of dollars were raised, but according to the source, the game never actually happened. And even though they tried to hide their identities behind NFTs, the source says the same team from Veeman's other projects was involved.
So it seems like there's a pattern here. Raise funds,
Yeah.
promise some amazing product or service, fail to deliver, and then do it all over again with a new venture. It's a cycle that really takes advantage of people's hope and their desire to get in early on the next big thing.
And the source doesn't stop there. They even bring up Veeman's girlfriend, Irene Veeman, also known as Iron Veeman on TikTok. They say she was super involved in promoting Veeman's businesses and that she always showed off this lavish lifestyle on social media, which makes people wonder even more about where their money is coming from.
That's where things get complicated. When does personal branding and influencer marketing become unethical? Influencers have a responsibility to be transparent about their financial interests and to only promote things that have real potential, not just for their own personal gain.
Right. Now, one of the biggest pieces of evidence the source has is some leaked chat logs. These are supposed to be conversations between V-Man and investors, and they paint a very bad picture.
So now we're moving from allegations to possible evidence. Let's look at these chat logs and see what they tell us.
Okay, so remember how V-Man was accused of using super farm funds to pay back old investors? Well, the chat logs seem to show him holding onto investor money for a long time. And it just so happens that this lines up with that suspicious price surge we talked about.
That's a really important detail. It might mean that he was trying to manipulate the market. If it's true, it could mean that Beamon was more interested in making himself and his friends rich, rather than thinking about the average investor.
And that brings us to the real people affected by all of this. The people who believed in V-Min and lost their savings. The source shares these really sad stories, like someone who put their entire monthly salary into Superfarm and then got a refund weeks later. But they actually lost money because of the high Ethereum gas fees they had to pay to get the refund.
That shows just how complicated the crypto world can be. Even when someone tries to make things right, the technical stuff like gas fees can still make investors lose money. You need to be financially savvy and understand the technical side of things to be in crypto.
And the source says these delays in refunds were on purpose. They gave V-Man and his team time to take advantage of that inflated token price, while the investors were stuck waiting and losing money in the end.
These are serious accusations. It'll be interesting to see what happens as more information comes out. But this deep dive has already shown how important it is to think critically, to do your research, and to understand the risks in crypto.
Before we move on to the next part of this story, I want to ask you, the listener, something. What are your thoughts so far? What's your first reaction to all of these accusations?
It really shows you that even though crypto is supposed to be decentralized and empowering, it can still be controlled by powerful people, just like in regular finance.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me in this video was how angry the source was at other big names in crypto, like Alex Becker. Becker actually supported Superfarm publicly. They even included a clip where Becker admits to talking to V-Man every day and knowing what was being built behind the scenes.
That's really important because it means that there could be this whole network of influencers who are making projects look good, whether they're actually good or not.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if these influencers are actually doing their research or if they're just jumping on the hype train to make money.
And the source does not hold back. They really angry about what they see as a lack of accountability in the crypto community. They use some pretty strong language when they talk about V-Man and his associates.
It's important to acknowledge the source's emotions, but we also have to be critical. Their perspective might be colored by their own experiences and biases. We have to look at the evidence they present and come to our own conclusions.
For sure. But even with that in mind, the source's passion is what makes this whole thing so interesting. They're not just giving us facts, they're sharing a story, a warning,
Yeah.
a call to action.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to stop this from happening again. To show that this is a pattern of behavior that's hurting the crypto community. It reminds us that even in a decentralized world, reputation and trust are still super important.
They say they've been trying to tell people about V-Man for years. They even reached out to CoffeeZilla before his investigation. But they feel like no one listened to them or took them seriously.
It's really frustrating to feel like you're not being heard, especially when you think you're seeing something wrong happening. It shows that we need better ways for people to report these things and hold people accountable in crypto.
The source lists all these projects that V-Man's been involved in. Tronchat, Evo Token, Superfarm, Imposters, Geegarts, even something called Donkey Finance. They say that each project followed the same pattern: raise money, promise big things, and then nothing.
It's amazing how the source connects all these different projects together and makes them seem like part of a bigger plan. If it's true, it makes you wonder if these ventures were ever meant to succeed, or if they were just designed to make V-Man and his friends rich.
It's like they're building a case piece by piece using leaked chat logs.
Yeah.
Blockchain transactions, even an alleged document from V-Man's company that shows how complicated their corporate structure is. They argue that this complexity is deliberate, a way to hide what they're doing and avoid responsibility.
The classic move of hiding in plain sight. They make things so complicated that no one can understand what's going on. It's a reminder that transparency isn't just about giving information. It's about making that information easy to understand for everyone.
And that brings us back to influencer culture. How do we make decisions about investments when we're being influenced by these charismatic people online?
That's a question we all have to deal with, especially in crypto. Technology and hype move so fast that they can be ahead of regulations and critical thinking. This source's story is a warning that we can't just trust anyone blindly, even people who seem successful or have good intentions.
They even compare V-Man to those snake oil salesmen from the old days, promising miracle cures but only delivering empty bottles.
It's a great analogy because it shows how deception and the desire for easy money are timeless. Whether it's a magic cure in the 1800s or a revolutionary cryptocurrency today, people fall for it for the same reasons.
The source even admits to getting really depressed after realizing what V-Man was allegedly doing.
That just goes to show how emotionally draining these kinds of experiences can be. It's a reminder that there are real people behind the numbers and the technical terms, people whose lives are being affected both financially and emotionally.
To really show that the source puts pictures of V-Man and his girlfriend living this luxurious life next to stories of people who lost everything.
That visual contrast is so powerful. It makes you feel empathy and anger at the same time. It forces you to think about the real consequences of these alleged schemes and to ask yourself if getting rich justifies this kind of exploitation.
The source highlights a really sad story of someone who invested their entire monthly salary into Superfarm, and then they got a refund weeks later. But because of the high gas fees, they ended up losing money.
It's a tragic example of the hidden costs and complexities in crypto. Even simple things like refunds can be difficult and expensive, especially for people who are new to crypto.
And the source says that these delays in refunds were intentional. Veeman and his team could use that time to make money off the inflated token price, while investors were left waiting and losing money.
If that's true, it's really worrying. It means that these weren't just failed projects, but a deliberate plan to take advantage of people's trust for personal gain.
They even call it a Ponzi scheme. And they show a timeline of events and screenshots of blockchain transactions to support their claim.
We have to remember that these are still just allegations, not proven facts. But the level of detail they provide means that we need to investigate this further.
They also bring up the legal side of things. They say that raising funds through ICOs and NFTs as a U.S. citizen could get Veeman in trouble with the law.
For those who don't know, ICOs are a way for startups to raise money by issuing their own digital tokens. And NFTs are unique digital assets that show you own something like a piece of digital art or a collectible.
Exactly. The source is saying that the way Veeman did these ICOs and NFT sales might have broken U.S. securities laws, and that could cause legal problems for him in the future.
This makes the story even more complicated, and it raises questions about how cryptocurrencies are regulated. As the industry grows, we're going to see more scrutiny and enforcement actions as governments try to catch up with how fast crypto is changing.
The source ends their video by urging viewers to share this information and spread awareness. They even directly challenge CoffeeZilla to look deeper into Veeman's past.
This shows how urgent they feel it is. They believe that if people don't speak up and hold these people accountable, it will happen again.
And they leave us with this thought-provoking question. How depressed does Elliot Veeman look? Then they show a bunch of pictures of Veeman's lavish lifestyle, right next to stories of people who lost money in his projects.
That final image is really impactful. It reminds us of the real human costs of these alleged scams. It's a call to look past the surface of success and glamour and see the potential for exploitation that exists in any system where trust and power aren't balanced.
So as we get ready to wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you, the listener, something. This story raises a lot of questions about due diligence, influencer culture, and what we choose to believe online. What are your takeaways? What stands out to you the most?
Yeah, it's tough, right? The
No.
crypto world is so exciting and it has so much potential. But like we've seen in this deep dive, there's a dark side. A side where people can take advantage of you and where it's hard to tell the difference between real excitement and manipulation.
It just reminds you that any new technology or any new area of finance comes with risks. And with crypto, things change so fast that the rules and regulations can't keep up. So the risks are even bigger.
I think what really got to me about this source's story was how urgent they sounded, almost desperate. They weren't just trying to expose one person, they were trying to warn everyone about a much bigger problem.
Right. It's like they're calling for more transparency. They want influencers to be held accountable. And for people in the crypto community to start thinking more critically. Don't just believe everything you hear. Yeah, they're not saying stay away from crypto, but they are saying to be careful, do your research, and don't trust people who make big promises without a real plan.
It's all about finding that balance, being excited about new things, but also being a responsible investor. Crypto could change so many things for the better, but that can only happen if we build it on trust and honesty.
So what do you think, listener? What does this story tell you about doing your research, about influencer culture, and about what you choose to believe online?
It shows you that you can't just believe what people tell you, even if you trust them. We all need to think for ourselves, question things, look for evidence, and be open to changing our minds when we learn new things.
The crypto world is full of promises, but like we learned today, you have to be able to separate the hype from the reality. It's always smart to be a little skeptical.
And I hope this deep dive has given you some tools to navigate the crypto world, to make better decisions, and to protect yourself from people who might try to trick you.
Remember, crypto is still new and it's changing all the time. We all have a part to play in shaping its future to make sure it lives up to its potential and to create a space where innovation and honesty go together.
Keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep pushing for a crypto ecosystem that's more transparent and accountable.
That's the real lesson here, isn't it? We're all responsible for shaping the future of this exciting but sometimes unpredictable space. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.